Hello, everyone. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment with where you're from and what time it is. That way, YouTube will keep pulling you into stories like this. Now, let the shadows take over. When people talk about haunted places, they usually mean houses, motels, hospitals, not fast food restaurants. Nobody imagines demons lurking behind a fryer or ghosts whispering through a drive-through speaker. But after what happened during my overnight shifts at Wendy's, I know better. I've seen what a building can do when something gets stuck inside it, something hungry. My name's Kelly Ruiz. I was 27 when this happened. Back then, life wasn't exactly going according to plan. I'd left a long-term relationship that went sour, moved back into my mom's tiny ranch-style house on the edge of Aurora, Illinois, and was working nights at Wendy's just to scrape by. It was supposed to be temporary. Save money, get back on my feet, move out within a year. That's what I told everyone, including myself. The Wendy's where I worked wasn't anything special. It sat in a half-dead strip mall across from a pawn shop with bars on the windows and an Office Max that hadn't seen a customer in months. The parking lot lights buzzed and flickered like they were on their last breath. At night, the place looked abandoned, like a fast food graveyard. That isolation made night shifts easier. Less customers, less hassle. But it also made the building feel wrong, like the world had forgotten about it. I usually worked with Angela, a 17-year-old part-timer who loved true crime podcasts and always showed up with a fresh can of Monster. We'd lock the dining room doors at 11, run the drive-thru until 2, and then Angela would clock out and head home, leaving me alone until close. I didn't mind. I preferred the quiet, or at least I used to. The night it started, I remember Angela joking as she tossed her apron in the laundry bin. "Don't let the frosty monster get you." She laughed like it was some running joke, but I didn't even know what she meant. I brushed it off, cranked up some old pop-punk playlist on my phone, and got to cleaning. The place was dead. No cars in the drive-thru for nearly an hour. I was just finishing wiping down the grill when I heard it. A hum. At first, I thought it was just the fridge cycling on, but it was too low and steady. It didn't come from the fryers or the soda machine either. I followed it, step by step, until I reached the frosty machine. Part of our nightly closing routine was draining and scrubbing that machine. I'd done it earlier that night. I could still smell sanitizer on my hands. It was supposed to be empty, bone dry, and unplugged. But as I stood there, I realized the hum was coming from inside it. Then I saw it. A slow stream of chocolate frosty was oozing from the nozzle into a small paper cup, sitting perfectly centered below it. I froze, staring. I didn't put that cup there. There hadn't been anything under the nozzle when I finished cleaning. My first thought was that I'd screwed something up, that maybe I hadn't fully drained it, and some leftover mixture was leaking out. But when I reached to shut the machine tighter, the hum stopped. The stream cut off clean. I dumped the cup, wiped the counter, and convinced myself it was nothing. 5 minutes later, the hum came back. I spun around and my stomach dropped. Another cup sat perfectly centered under the nozzle, halfway filled with frosty. "Nope," I whispered to myself, heart pounding. I yanked the plug from the wall. The machine powered down with a hiss. I left the cup where it was and went back to cleaning, avoiding looking at it like ignoring it would make it disappear. When I finished my shift, I locked up and left without another thought. The next night, it happened again. Same time. Same hum. Same cup. By the third night, I wasn't laughing it off anymore. I came in early and asked Victor, our maintenance guy, to check it out. He opened the machine, tested the wiring, ran every diagnostic. "It's fine," he said. "You probably forgot to shut it off. Happens." But I knew I hadn't. That night, I set my phone to record video and audio. At 1:32 a.m., like clockwork, the hum started. I approached with my phone out, filming the unplugged machine as it vibrated slightly. A cup slid into place under the nozzle, not fell, not rolled, but slid like invisible hands had pushed it there. Then chocolate frosty poured into it, slow and deliberate. I whispered, "What the hell?" And then, clear as day on the audio, but not to my ears at the time, came a voice. More. When I reviewed the video after my shift, the footage was black. No machine, no cup, just static and the faint hum. But the whisper came through crystal clear. That's when I stopped brushing it off. Something was wrong with that machine. On night 4, I came prepared. I borrowed a GoPro from my cousin, set it up on a tripod facing the frosty machine, and made sure everything was unplugged before I locked the dining room doors. I even duct-taped the nozzle shut. Angela left as usual, joking again about the frosty monster. But this time, I didn't even pretend to laugh. At 1:30 a.m., the hum started again. From behind the prep counter, I watched as the duct tape peeled itself away slowly, like someone was carefully unwrapping a gift. My chest tightened. The machine began to shake, not violently, just a subtle vibration like it was struggling against something. Then I heard it. More. This time it wasn't faint. It wasn't distant. It was right next to my ear. I stumbled back, flashlight beam jittering across the tile. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaking. No answer. The frosty machine hissed, and a fresh stream poured into a cup that hadn't been there seconds before. That's when the lights flickered. Every fluorescent bulb in the kitchen blinked once, twice, then dimmed so low I could barely see. The hum grew louder, vibrating in my teeth. I swear I could feel it pulsing under my skin. The drive-through speaker crackled to life. "Kelly!" My blood ran cold. I hadn't put on a headset. The drive-through wasn't active, but someone, or something, knew my name. "Who is this?" I yelled, grabbing the manager's office radio. "Hungry," the voice hissed back through the speaker, distorted and wet. That's when the machine erupted. Chocolate frosty spewed violently from the nozzle, splattering across the counter, the floor, my shoes. The cup beneath it overflowed instantly, but the stream didn't stop. It poured and poured, smelling sour and wrong, like spoiled milk mixed with rust. I screamed and ran for the breaker in the back. As I flipped every switch off, plunging the building into darkness, the hum didn't stop. It got louder. And then, it whispered again, a chorus of voices this time. More. I don't remember running to my car. I don't remember starting the engine or blowing through 2 red lights on my way home. What I do remember is sitting in my driveway hours later, covered in dried frosty, shaking so hard my teeth hurt. The next morning, I went back with Victor and Mel, our GM. I expected to see chocolate splattered everywhere. I expected proof that I wasn't losing my mind. But the kitchen was spotless. The frosty machine looked brand new. Not a drip, not a stain. Victor said it was fine. Mel looked at me like I'd lost it. I quit that afternoon without explaining why. 2 months later, I was working at a different Wendy's across town, trying to convince myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Then one night, during a closing shift, a customer ordered a frosty. I pulled the lever and swirled it into a cup. That hum, the same low, steady hum, vibrated through my hands. And faintly, just under the sound of running machines and kitchen chatter, I heard it again. More. I always thought working fast food was harmless. Stressful, sure. Greasy, absolutely. But dangerous? Not really. That was before I learned what a Wendy's can hold on to after closing. My name is Drew Callahan, and 3 years ago, I worked overnight shifts at a Wendy's off Interstate 70 just outside Springfield, Missouri. It wasn't much to look at, just a lonely building sitting at the edge of a cracked parking lot, surrounded by flickering yellow lights. At night, the place felt like an island no one wanted to visit. I was 23, fresh out of college, unsure what to do with my life. The degree hanging in my closet meant nothing. My parents were tired of me living at home. I told them this Wendy's gig was temporary, a way to save up money and figure out my next move. But if I'm honest, I was drifting. Working nights gave me space to think without anyone around to judge me. Or so I thought. Most nights blurred together. I'd clock in at 10, work with a skeleton crew until 2, and then close alone until morning. Corporate claimed one person was enough for those hours, and no one complained. We all needed the paycheck. I liked the silence at first. I'd mop the floors, scrub the grills, stock patties in the freezer. The only sounds were the hum of soda machines and the occasional buzz from the dying lights outside. But around my 5th month, weird things started happening. At first, it was little things. A spatula moved from one prep station to another. Stacks of buns shifted. Freezer boxes not where I left them. Doors I'd locked would somehow be open when I came back from taking out the trash. I chalked it up to exhaustion. 12-hour nights mess with your brain, make you forget things you're sure you did. At least, that's what I thought, until the night the freezer door slammed. It was a Wednesday in late November, bitterly cold outside. Lisa, my last co-worker of the night, had just left. I was alone, finishing fryer cleanup, when a loud metallic bang echoed from the back hallway near the walk-in freezer. It was sharp enough to make me jump and drop my rag. I froze, every nerve in my body on alert. "Lisa!" I called out, though I knew she was long gone. No answer. I grabbed a broom, holding it like a bat, and crept toward the noise. Each step echoed unnaturally loud in the empty store. As I rounded the corner, a wave of icy air hit me, making my breath fog. The heavy freezer door stood wide open. That door weighed a ton. It always stuck when you tried to open it. And here it was, swung open like someone had kicked it. I took a hesitant step inside, calling out softly, "Hello?" Frost coated the metal shelves like a layer of white dust. The light flickered once, buzzing faintly. I saw nothing but stacked burger patties and bags of frozen fries. I let out a shaky sigh and muttered to myself, "I'm losing it." Then it happened. The freezer door slammed shut with a deafening clang. I spun around and grabbed the handle, yanking hard. It wouldn't budge. That door had never, not once in my months there, locked automatically. Panic surged through me. I banged on the steel with my fists, shouting for help that I knew wouldn't come. That's when I heard them. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, crunching softly on the frost-covered tiles. My breath caught. I turned toward the sound, my heart hammering in my chest. At the far end of the freezer stood a man, or at least, something shaped like one. Tall, gaunt, his skin stretched pale over sharp cheekbones. He wore a Wendy's uniform like mine, but it was old, faded, stained dark with something that looked too thick to be grease. My voice cracked as I asked, "Who the hell are you?" The figure tilted its head, breath fogging in the icy air. "We can't leave," it rasped, voice dry and brittle. "What?" I whispered, backing toward the door. They never let us leave. I tightened my grip on the handle. "Stay back," I warned. A grotesque smile stretched across its face, too wide, too unnatural to be human. The flickering light above shattered, plunging the freezer into darkness. Something heavy slammed into me from the side, knocking me to the floor. My shoulder cracked against the icy tile, pain radiating down my arm. I scrambled to find the broom, but a crushing weight pressed down on my chest, pinning me. "Get off me!" I screamed, flailing blindly. My fingers scraped against cardboard and frost, finding nothing to defend myself. The footsteps circled me in the pitch black, deliberate and slow. I felt its breath against my ear as a whisper hissed, "You'll stay with us forever." I swung wildly, punching at empty air. The weight vanished, and suddenly a blinding white light flooded the freezer. Not fluorescent, but hot and searing like a spotlight cutting through darkness. In that light, I saw them. Dozens of figures huddled in the far corner of the freezer. Men, women, even a couple of kids, all wearing old Wendy's uniforms. Their faces were frozen mid-scream, frost clinging to their hair and eyelashes. They weren't moving, but I knew somehow they weren't dead. My chest tightened as my breath came out in ragged gasps. No, this can't be real. The gaunt man stepped into the light. Up close, his body shimmered like translucent ice. His empty eyes locked onto mine. "It's real," he said, voice cracking like shattering glass. "And now, you're one of us." I stumbled backward, my shoes slipping on ice. "No," I gasped, clawing at the door handle. I pulled with everything I had, screaming until my throat burned. But the freezer wouldn't let me go. Then came the whispers. Dozens of them, filling the air, overlapping in a maddening chant. "Stay! Stay! Stay!" Cold, translucent hands grabbed my arms and legs, pulling me down toward the frost-covered floor. I kicked and struggled, but their grip was relentless. My vision tunneled, darkness closing in. And then, nothing. I woke hours later on the greasy kitchen floor outside the freezer. My body trembled violently, my teeth ached from chattering. Frost clung to my uniform like a thin layer of snow. The freezer door stood wide open, mocking me. I dragged myself to my feet, glancing at the clock on the wall. Nearly 6 a.m. I'd lost almost 4 hours. My mind scrambled for a rational explanation. Carbon monoxide poisoning, exhaustion, a panic attack. But nothing explained what I saw when I looked down at the floor. Footprints, dozens of them, icy and human-shaped, leading from the freezer across the kitchen. They stopped just short of the manager's office. My stomach turned to ice as my eyes landed on the office door. Written in frost, clear as day, were 3 words. "Never leave us." I didn't stick around to clean. I didn't even clock out. I ran to my car, started it with shaking hands, and drove away like hell itself was on my tail. The next day, I quit. I didn't ask for my last paycheck. I just wanted to forget. But forgetting isn't that easy. A month later, my buddy James, who took over my night shifts, texted me at 3 a.m. The message was just 2 words. "Freezer's locked." He hasn't been seen since. That's why I'll never take a night shift again. Not at Wendy's, not anywhere. Because sometimes these places, they remember, and sometimes they don't let you leave. Before we jump into the next story, if you're enjoying these creepy tales, hit that subscribe button. We've got fresh horror chills waiting for you every night. I never believed in possession. That was church talk, movie nonsense. Spirits don't crawl inside people, and demons don't clock in for minimum wage. At least, that's what I thought before I worked alongside Ethan Rourke. What happened to him during that winter still gnaws at my sanity, and no amount of whiskey or sleepless nights has shaken it loose. I was 26 then, managing closing shifts at a Wendy's in Brunswick, Ohio. It wasn't a glamorous job, not even a good one, but it kept my rent paid. Most nights were dead quiet, especially in winter when snow iced the roads and customers stayed home. After 10 p.m., we ran with a skeleton crew, me handling the register and inventory, Ethan working the grill. Ethan was 19, tall and wiry, a kid who always seemed to be lost in his own head. He never caused trouble, never talked much. I used to think he was just shy. It started on a Monday night in December. We were prepping to close when I noticed Ethan standing by the fryer, mumbling under his breath. At first I thought he was singing to himself. When I walked closer, his lips were barely moving, his eyes locked on nothing. "Ethan," I said, half joking, "you whispering sweet nothings to the fryer?" He jumped like I'd snapped him out of a trance. "What?" "You were talking to yourself," I said, watching his reaction. His face drained of color. "No, I wasn't." I shrugged it off. Long hours can make anyone weird. We clocked out, went home, came back the next night. Everything seemed normal until Wednesday. That night, I arrived early and found Ethan already inside, even though his shift wasn't for another hour. He was standing motionless near the walk-in cooler, lips moving again. This time, I kept my distance, just listening. It wasn't mumbling. It was whispering. Low, guttural, too deep to be his voice. My chest tightened as I stepped closer and touched his shoulder. "Ethan, you good, man?" He jerked violently, spinning around with wide, glassy eyes. For a moment, it looked like he didn't recognize me. Then his body relaxed, and he stammered. Yeah, just thinking about orders." But something in his voice felt wrong. Not tired, not stressed, detached. Over the next few days, his behavior unraveled. He burned fries, mixed up orders, forgot basic steps he'd done 100 times. Customers complained about him saying strange things at the counter. A middle-aged woman swore he whispered, "He's standing behind you," before handing her a meal. Ethan denied it all. One night, I found him crouched in the walk-in cooler with his head pressed to the wall. When I asked what he was doing, he looked at me with vacant eyes and said, "Listening to them eat." By early January, corporate wanted him written up. They had no idea what was really happening. I told Ethan to take a few days off, hoping it would clear his head. He agreed, saying he hadn't been sleeping well. But the next shift, as we were closing, I heard laughter echoing through the kitchen. Ethan didn't laugh much, and when he did, it was awkward and quiet. This laugh was loud, jagged, unnatural. I walked in and saw him staring into the sizzling grill, shoulders rigid. The sound spilling from him didn't match the stillness of his face. "Ethan," I said carefully, "what's going on with you?" The laughter cut off instantly. He turned to face me, and my stomach dropped. His pupils had swallowed the whites of his eyes. When he spoke, it wasn't his voice. "You reek of smoke," it rasped, like the ones in the dirt. My throat tightened. "What are you talking about?" Ethan's lips curled into a smile, stretched too wide for his face. "You think he's still in here?" the voice asked, tapping his chest with 2 fingers. "He's gone. He's been gone for days." I backed away, stumbling against a prep table. "Stop messing around," I snapped, though fear laced my words. The thing wearing Ethan tilted his head slowly, studying me. "You'll see," it whispered. "They all see, just before the burning." Then, like a light switch flipped, Ethan blinked. His posture loosened, pupils shrinking. He looked around in confusion. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I couldn't speak. My body screamed to run, but my mind refused to accept what I'd seen. We cleaned the kitchen in silence. By 3 a.m., I grabbed my coat and told him I'd finish locking up. But as I turned my key in the front door, a scream shattered the stillness. I sprinted back, heart pounding, and skidded into the kitchen. Ethan was by the fryer, clawing at his face. Blisters bubbled across his skin like it was cooking under invisible heat. The smell of burning flesh filled the air, making me gag. "Ethan!" I shouted, grabbing his arms. His head snapped toward me, neck bending unnaturally far, unnaturally fast. His mouth opened impossibly wide, and a sound erupted. A layered scream of countless voices, all shrieking in pain. I stumbled backward, slipping on oil. Ethan's body convulsed, jerking violently. His skin writhed as if something moved beneath it. His eyes turned jet black again, veins crawling like dark vines under his flesh. He lunged at me. I kicked out desperately, my foot hitting his chest and knocking him into a prep table. Metal trays clattered as he collapsed. I bolted for the door, fumbling with the lock. Footsteps thundered behind me. Just as I yanked it open, a hand slammed flat against the glass. Ethan stood there, his face normal again, tears cutting through soot on his cheeks. "Help me," he whispered hoarsely, "before it comes back." My hands trembled on the doorframe, torn between fear and instinct. Before I could move, his body jerked violently, slamming into the metal frame. His face twisted in agony, as that other voice hissed, "Too late." He collapsed lifelessly. The police report called it a seizure, heart failure from exhaustion. That's the official story. But I know what I saw. I can still hear the chorus of screams echoing through that kitchen. I can still see Ethan's jaw unhinging wider than any human should. And sometimes, when I drive past that Wendy's at night, I see him through the window, standing by the fryer, lips moving in whispers meant for something only he can see. People think fast food robberies are quick. A masked guy runs in, yells for cash, grabs what he can, and bolts. That's what I thought too, until the night I learned some people don't come for money. Some people come just to watch you unravel piece by piece. I was 24 when this happened, working night shifts at a Wendy's in Helena, Montana. It was one of those locations stuck on the outskirts of town, surrounded by nothing but cracked asphalt, dead fields, and the dark outline of the mountains. At night, it felt like the building was floating in a sea of black, the neon sign buzzing like a dying insect above the drive-thru. The shift had started out normal. There were 3 of us that night. Me running the shift, Travis Cole on grill, and Sierra Dalton, a high school senior who just started that week. I was showing her how to close up, trying to ease her nerves. Night shifts weren't usually scary. Lonely, maybe. Boring, usually. But never frightening. By midnight, we locked the front doors and switched to drive-thru only. The dinner rush had been quiet, and after 1 in the morning, there was nothing but silence. I could hear the soda machine humming across the lobby, the fryer oil popping in slow, tired bursts. Sierra asked if it was always this dead. I laughed and told her Fridays were like this until the bar crowd showed up around 3. Then the door buzzer went off. It was a sharp chime that echoed through the empty dining room. Travis and I glanced at each other. "You locked it, right?" I asked him. He nodded, insulted. Of course I locked it. I walked out from behind the counter to check. The glass doors were locked, untouched. Nobody was outside. I shrugged it off as a glitch. We had sensors that occasionally freaked out. Sierra looked uneasy, but I tried to joke about it, keep things light. 5 minutes later, it went off again. Louder this time. This time, I didn't even make it to the door before I froze. 3 figures stood outside in the dark, motionless. They wore black hoodies pulled tight, their faces hidden in shadows. They didn't move. They didn't speak. They just stood there, shoulder to shoulder, staring through the glass. "Drive-thru's still open," I called out, pointing to the side of the building. No reaction. One of them tilted their head slightly, like a predator considering its prey. My stomach knotted. I backed away, double-checking the locks. "We've got people out front," I told Travis. He grabbed the long metal tongs from the fryer like a makeshift weapon. Sierra just stared, pale and frozen. The figures stayed there for a long, suffocating minute before silently splitting up. One circling left, one right, and the third stepping backward into the shadows until it disappeared. Travis swore under his breath. What the hell was that? I didn't answer. My instincts screamed something was wrong. We locked every door, checked the delivery exit twice, and huddled near the drive-through window. 10 minutes passed. Nothing. Then came the sound of metal scraping from the back hallway. The delivery door rattled violently, as if someone was trying to wedge it open with a crowbar. I ran to it and shouted, "Police are on their way!" though my phone was still in my pocket. The rattling stopped instantly. When I turned back, Sierra was gone. Panic surged through me. I shouted her name, my voice cracking. Travis bolted from the kitchen, gripping the tongs like a bat. "She was just here," he said, wide-eyed. We searched frantically until a muffled scream echoed from the walk-in freezer. My heart dropped. I sprinted there, Travis on my heels, and yanked open the heavy door. Sierra was inside, duct tape wrapped tight around her wrists and ankles, a strip of cloth tied over her mouth. Her eyes were wide with terror. I dragged her out, ripping the tape from her wrists and tearing off the gag. "What happened?" she sobbed, trembling uncontrollably. "Someone grabbed me, pulled me in here. They whispered in my ear." Travis's face drained of color. "Whispered what?" "They said, 'Don't scream, or we'll cut your throat.'" Before I could respond, every light in the restaurant snapped off at once. The building was plunged into suffocating darkness, only the faint red glow of the emergency exit signs flickering. Then came the footsteps, dozens of them, from everywhere. The lobby, the kitchen, the ceiling above. They moved fast and slow all at once, pacing, circling, like predators in the dark. We huddled together, Sierra clutching my arm so tight, her nails dug into my skin. Travis raised his tongs, like they'd do anything against whatever was out there. From the darkness, a man's voice spoke, calm, close, too close. "Open the door." My throat tightened. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice shaking. Silence. Then the voice came again, from the other side of the room. "Open it. Now." Something cold brushed past my neck. I whipped around, swinging blindly, hitting nothing. Sierra whimpered. Travis's breath came fast and shallow. We started backing toward the kitchen exit, moving low, barely breathing. When we reached it, I saw the steel door cracked open slightly, night air seeping in. I peeked outside. Empty. Dead silent. "Go," I whispered, pushing Sierra forward. She bolted into the night, Travis right behind her. I was halfway out when something slammed against the inside of the door, with inhuman force, slamming it shut and pinning me against it. A hand pressed against the glass. Not one hand, dozens. Pale, thin hands smeared with dirt and scratches, clawing, pushing, gripping. Faces emerged from the darkness inside. Hooded figures, their hoods slipping just enough for me to see sunken eyes, and smiles too wide. Teeth glinting in the faint light. They didn't rush me. They didn't speak. They just pressed against the glass, silent and unblinking, watching me struggle. I screamed and shoved the door open with every ounce of strength I had, stumbling backward into the parking lot. Travis slammed it shut behind me, locking it from the outside. We ran to my car, tires screeching as we sped away, not stopping until we reached the police station downtown. Sierra couldn't speak. Travis and I told the officers everything. The crowd, Sierra being dragged away, the whispers, the hands at the door. They drove us back, searched every inch of the restaurant. Nothing. No footprints in the snow. No tape in the freezer. No signs anyone had been inside. Every camera in the building showed static during the time we were there. The official report called it a prank. The cops said kids had probably been messing with us. But we knew better. Sierra never came back to work. Travis packed up and left town a week later. And me? I still see those hands sometimes when I'm alone in my apartment, clawing at my windows, smiling from the dark, waiting for the night I finally stop running. Night shifts had a way of crawling under your skin. It wasn't just the exhaustion or the loneliness, it was the silence. The kind of silence that made every sound feel amplified, every shadow feel alive. I'd worked at the Wendy's off Route 61 in northern Missouri for over a year, mostly late shifts, and I thought I'd seen it all. Drunks stumbling through the drive-thru, sketchy couples arguing in the parking lot, even one guy who tried to climb through the pickup window for free nuggets. But nothing prepared me for the night everything changed. It was mid-August, one of those humid nights where the air feels heavy enough to drown you. The day shift had been slammed, and by the time night rolled around, it was just me and Renee Harper, the assistant manager, running the place. Renee was 33, sharp-tongued, but good-hearted, the kind of person who could tell off an angry customer without breaking a sweat. We'd done this routine 100 times. Lock the doors at midnight, clean up, prep for morning. Usually, it was easy money. That night felt wrong from the beginning. Even before the customers left, something in the atmosphere made my skin prickle. The hum of the soda machine seemed louder than usual. The buzzing fluorescent lights flickered just enough to catch your eye, and every time I glanced out the front windows, it felt like the darkness was pressing closer, smothering the glow from inside. Renee mentioned it too, saying she felt like someone was out there watching us. We laughed it off because what else could we do? But after midnight, neither of us went near the windows alone. Around 1:30 a.m., we were almost finished with cleanup when it happened. I was in the kitchen scrubbing down the grill when I heard the front door chime. My heart jumped because the door was locked. We'd checked it twice. I froze, spatula in hand, and glanced at the monitor by the register. Nothing. Just the empty dining area. Renee walked out to check, muttering curses under her breath, and came back looking pale. "Nobody's there," she said quietly. 10 minutes later, the chime sounded again. This time, I went with her to see. The front doors were locked, untouched. The parking lot outside stretched into darkness, nothing moving, not even a stray cat. I tried to make a joke to calm us both, but my throat was dry. Something about the silence outside felt suffocating, unnatural. As we turned to head back to the kitchen, Renee stopped abruptly, her gaze fixed on the glass door. I followed her line of sight and felt my stomach drop. A handprint smeared across the glass. It wasn't just any mark. It was greasy, reddish, fresh enough that it was still dripping toward the handle. Neither of us had been near that door in hours. We ran to the office to check the security feed. The cameras were old, grainy, but we rewound the footage anyway. One frame showed a clean door. The next frame, the handprint was just there. No one had approached. No movement, no shadow. It was impossible. Renee tried to brush it off as a prank, maybe a glitch with the camera, but I saw the way her hands trembled as she grabbed the mop to clean it off. By 2:15 a.m., we were pushing through the final tasks, eager to leave. That's when we heard footsteps in the back hallway. Slow, deliberate steps echoing off the tile. We froze, exchanging a terrified glance. No one else was supposed to be there. Renee grabbed a rolling pin from the prep table while I clutched a heavy metal spatula like it was a weapon. We crept toward the noise, each step louder than the last in the oppressive silence. As we reached the end of the hallway near the walk-in cooler, the sound stopped. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. I turned the corner and stopped dead. A man stood at the far end by the delivery door. He was tall and gaunt, wearing a dirty red hoodie with holes in the sleeves, ripped jeans hanging loosely off his thin frame. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his face, something about his face was wrong. It was slack, lifeless, like he'd forgotten how to be human. Renee's voice was steady but low. "How the hell did you get in here?" The man didn't answer. He tilted his head slowly, as if considering the question, and started walking toward us. His footsteps were too loud, too deliberate, echoing unnaturally in the narrow hallway. I stepped forward, my voice cracking. "You need to leave. Right now." He stopped, looked at Renee, then at me, and whispered in a rasping voice, "I can't leave. Not until I finish what I started." A chill shot down my spine. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my grip tightening on the spatula. His cracked lips pulled into a grin that made my stomach twist. "You'll see," he said softly. Then, without warning, he lunged. The speed was inhuman. Renee swung the rolling pin with everything she had, smacking his shoulder hard enough to make a cracking sound. It didn't slow him. He grabbed me by the collar and slammed me against the wall, his breath hot and foul in my ear. "They told me to come back," he hissed. "Said you'd be here." Renee jumped on his back, clawing and kicking, but he flung her off like she weighed nothing. She crashed against the tile floor, groaning in pain. I kicked him hard in the stomach and bolted for the kitchen, screaming for Renee to follow. We barreled through the swinging door and locked it behind us, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped the latch. The man slammed against the door seconds later, each hit reverberating through the metal frame. The sound was guttural, furious. "Call the cops," Renee yelled, clutching her ribs. I grabbed the office phone. Dead. My cell had no signal. Panic gnawed at my throat. The banging stopped. I crept to the small window in the door, my breath caught in my chest. The hallway was empty. Then came the voice, inside the kitchen this time, behind us. "You can't lock me out." We spun around. The man stood by the fryers, smiling wide enough to split his face. The kitchen doors had never opened. Renee screamed, swinging the rolling pin again. He caught it mid-swing, wrenched it from her hands, and snapped it in two like kindling. I stumbled backward toward the stove, grabbed a pot of boiling water, and hurled it at him. The scalding liquid steamed as it splashed across his hoodie, but he didn't even flinch. His grin widened. "What are you?" I shouted, voice cracking in terror. He tilted his head, eyes glinting unnaturally under the flickering lights. "I'm what you left behind," he whispered. Then his skin rippled. At first I thought it was a trick of the light, but then I saw it clearly. Another face pushing outward from beneath his own, stretching the flesh like melted wax. It was a woman's face, her mouth open in a silent scream, her eyes wide and glassy. Renee yanked me backward toward the walk-in freezer. We scrambled inside and slammed the door shut, bracing it with a heavy crate of frozen fries. From outside, his voice echoed, distorted now, layered like two people speaking at once. "You can't hide. You never could." We huddled in the bitter cold, our breath fogging the air. Renee whispered, her voice cracking. "What the hell is happening?" I shook my head, too terrified to answer. Minutes dragged by like hours. Then silence. I pressed my ear to the metal door. Nothing. When I finally cracked it open, the kitchen was empty. The man was gone. We didn't wait to find out where he went. We ran out the back door into the humid night, sprinting across the parking lot without looking back. The police searched the restaurant for hours but found nothing. No forced entry, no footprints, no handprint on the glass. Every security camera froze at exactly 2:17 a.m. and stayed that way until morning. But Renee and I know the truth. We saw his face stretch. We saw the woman screaming beneath his skin. And some nights, when I'm lying awake in my apartment, I hear footsteps pacing outside my bedroom door. Waiting. Because whatever that thing was, it wasn't finished with us. Not then. Not now. Night shifts at Wendy's were supposed to be quiet. That's what I told myself every time I clocked in at 10 p.m., knowing I wouldn't see the sun again until nearly 7 in the morning. Sure, you'd get the occasional late-night drunk, a trucker looking for coffee, or the weird guy who ordered 3 baked potatoes and nothing else. But most nights were just silence, grease, and the constant hum of the fryers. I was 22, working the overnight shift at a Wendy's just outside of Springfield, Illinois. The restaurant sat on the edge of town, far enough from the interstate that we never saw much traffic after midnight. On a good night, you'd have 1 or 2 cars between midnight and 4 a.m., and then the breakfast crowd would start trickling in. It was a Wednesday in late October, bone-chillingly cold and damp from earlier rain. The restaurant was empty. My only company that night was Allie, a 19-year-old college student who'd just started a month prior. She was sharp but nervous on night shifts, always jumping at every creak in the building. At around 12:45 a.m., I noticed a car pull into the lot. It was an old blue Chevy Impala, parked under the broken streetlight on the far end of the property. The headlights turned off, but no one got out. I pointed it out to Allie. "Probably just someone resting," I said, though something about it didn't feel right. Allie nodded but kept glancing toward the dark corner of the lot. The minutes ticked by. The car didn't move. Around 1:15, the Impala slowly circled the building and pulled up to the drive-through speaker. I put on my headset and did my usual greeting. "Welcome to Wendy's. Go ahead whenever you're ready." Silence. "All good?" I asked, thinking maybe the speaker had cut out. Then a faint, static-laced voice whispered, "I see you." I froze. "Excuse me?" Nothing. The car drove forward slowly, stopping at the first window. I leaned out to see who it was. The driver's seat was empty. I blinked, leaned further out. The passenger seat was empty too, but the car was running. I stepped back, my chest tightening, and called for Allie. We both leaned out together. The car suddenly rolled forward, pulling past the window and back toward the dark corner of the lot. Allie whispered, "That's messed up. There's no one in it." I wanted to say it was just a prank, but my stomach churned. By 2 a.m., we were on edge. I kept glancing out the windows while trying to focus on closing tasks. Allie stuck close to the kitchen, refusing to step into the lobby alone. That's when we heard it, a faint metallic scrape from the drive-through headset. I slipped it on again. "Hello?" Breathing. Slow, deliberate. Then, clear as day. "I'm already inside." I ripped off the headset, heart racing. Allie backed up against the counter. We checked every door. They were locked. We searched the bathrooms, the supply closets. Nothing. Trying to stay calm, I convinced Allie to stay in the office while I finished mopping the lobby. I told myself it was just a messed-up prank, maybe a tech glitch, letting someone mess with our system. But as I walked toward the front windows, mop in hand, I saw it. The Impala was parked again under the broken light. But this time, the driver's door was wide open, swinging slightly in the wind, and a figure stood by the window, not just standing, pressed up against the glass. It was a man, tall, wearing a dark jacket with the hood pulled low. His face was pale and stretched into a fixed grin that didn't look natural. His breath fogged the glass as he whispered something I couldn't hear. I backed away slowly, my voice shaking as I called for Allie. She stepped out of the office, saw the man, and gasped. "Sir, you can't be here," I called out, trying to sound firm. "We're closed." The man didn't move, didn't blink. I grabbed the phone to call 911. As soon as I started dialing, the man slowly raised his hand and pointed toward the drive-through window. The headset crackled to life. "You left the window unlocked." Before I could react, the drive-through window slammed open with a loud bang. Papers flew off the counter as freezing night air rushed in. Allie screamed. I ran to the window, slammed it shut, and locked it, my hands trembling violently. I turned back toward the front lobby. The man was gone. The Impala's headlights flared on, blinding us through the glass. The engine roared, and the car peeled out of the lot, tires screeching. We stood there, breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. "Let's finish closing and get out," I whispered. We worked in tense silence, every noise making us jump. By 3:30, we were almost done. I stepped out back to take the trash to the dumpster, while Allie finished wiping counters. The moment I pushed open the back door, my breath caught. The Impala was back, parked just yards away, and the man was standing between me and the dumpster, his grin wider than before, eyes glinting under the flickering light. "You shouldn't have locked it," he said softly. I bolted back inside, slamming the heavy door and throwing the deadbolt. "Allie, we need to leave. Now." We grabbed our things, hearts pounding. I checked the cameras before leaving. What I saw made my blood run cold. In every camera angle, the lobby, the kitchen, the storage room, he was there, standing in the corner, watching us. Even when we turned the cameras to face him, he didn't move. The feed glitched, static filling the screens. Allie tugged my arm. "Please, let's just go." We made a dash for the front door. I unlocked it, and we sprinted to my car. As I jammed the key into the ignition, headlights flared behind us. The Impala blocked the exit. The man stepped out, holding something shiny in his hand. I hit the gas anyway, swerving hard around him, the bumper narrowly missing his legs. We didn't stop driving until we were miles away at a 24-hour gas station. The police met us there, took statements, and went back to check the Wendy's. They said the lot was empty. No Impala, no footprints. And when they reviewed the security footage, every camera was nothing but static from midnight onward. Allie quit the next day. I stayed a little longer, but every night, I swore I saw that Impala in the distance, headlights off, waiting. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still see his grin pressed against the glass, whispering through the static. I'm already inside.